Hello, everybody, and welcome to Joe the Lawyer. Today, we're going to take a look at this pretty wild argument this wild article. You know, I'm in court all day, that word just comes out. This wild article that I found about an ex-DEA agent who's going to prison for 5 years due to corruption. And it appears when you read this story, it's almost, real life is stranger than fiction. I'm like, is this serious? Is this guy for real? It's almost out of a movie, okay? I wouldn't be surprised if a movie was made about his life in a couple of years. This guy kind of got caught up in corruption and things and ended up protecting, I don't know if you can call it the mafia, but the local Italian community in Buffalo. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. My name is Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. I'm looking to grow the channel, so any free support would be greatly appreciated. Again, just like, just subscribe, just share, and just comment. I'm not getting enough comments on these videos. I appreciate everybody who is in the chat, but would really do me good if we got some comments. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to start by watching this video, and this guy's name is Joseph Bongiovanni. My name is Joseph. Don't give Joe's a bad name, Agent Bongiovanni. That's about as Italian as it gets when it comes to last names. But let's watch this, and then we're going to read the news article.
Former DEA agent Joseph Bongiovanni could spend up to 20 years in federal prison after a jury convicted him today on 7 of the 11 charges against him.
News 4's Marley Tuskus was inside the courtroom for that verdict today. She joins us live outside the federal courthouse with those details. Marley.
Well, Dave and Kelsey, the jury was unanimous on each of those 11 charges. That was something that we weren't sure was going to happen yesterday after they sent that last note, 7 of which included conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruction of justice. Joseph Bongiovanni was found guilty on those charges. However, he was found not guilty on 4 counts, including the charges of public official accepting a bribe. For weeks, prosecutors have argued that Bongiovanni accepted roughly $250,000 in bribes by using his position in the DEA to shield childhood friends involved in alleged sex and drug trafficking from any law enforcement suspicion. After 3 days of deliberation and notes, as I noted, signaling that the jury may not be unanimous, they delivered their verdict this morning. As we noted yesterday, this was a retrial against Bongiovanni. He was found guilty of 3 charges by another jury back in April, though one of those was eventually thrown out. This means Bongiovanni has been convicted of a total of 9 felonies. But U.S. Attorney Trini Ross says today's decision does not call for a celebration because Bongiovanni misused his power as a government official. Bongiovanni's attorneys say the charges he's convicted of are simply paperwork errors, and they plan to fight against the convictions.
The only thing the jury came back and found today unanimously was that Joe Bongiovanni had a childhood friend, Lou Selva, who he may have known had something going on with marijuana at his house in his basement, and didn't say anything to the DEA about it. That's what the jury came back today. They also came back with the fact that he may have misstated things in reports about initiating contact ever once with Peter Gerace.
Bongiovanni's attorneys say he is still processing the conviction. Judge Lawrence Velardo made the decision not to detain Bongiovanni, instead releasing him on house arrest with an ankle monitoring device. Bongiovanni's sentencing date is set for 8 months from now, June 9th. That will allow both the prosecution and the defense to make and file any motions or have any oral arguments for those motions. So again, the sentencing date is set for June 9th. Reporting live in downtown Buffalo, Marley Tuskus, News 4.
So I don't know how old that video is. It says a year ago. I found this article, ex-DEA agent sentenced for protecting drug trafficking friends, January 21st, 2026. So, excuse me, the sentencing was probably originally scheduled for June of 2025. And they pushed it back to 2026. So let's go through this article. In 2 decades of kicking indoors for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, Joseph Bongiovanni often took on the risks of lawyers did a good job. I mean, they beat the most serious charges, got his sentence reduced by a third, down to 1/3 of what the prosecutors were asking for. Bongiovanni once hurtled into a burning apartment building to evacuate residents through billowing smoke. He locked up drug dealers, including the first ever prosecuted in the region for causing a fatal overdose. There are 2 completely polar opposite versions of the facts and polar opposite versions of the defendant, Villardo said, assuring prosecutors 5 years behind bars would pose a considerable hardship to someone who has never been to prison. Not to mention the fact that when police officers go to prison, they oftentimes need to be isolated, need to have special protection from other inmates. Defense attorney Parker McKay noted the judge had acknowledged Bongiovanni as a beacon of the Buffalo community. The government's request for a 15-year sentence, he added, was completely unmoored to the nature of the convictions. Again, I give these defense attorneys a lot of credit here. As Mr. Bongiovanni told the judge at sentencing, he's innocent, and we look forward to continuing to work with him to prove that. Well, once you're convicted by a jury, it's very difficult to get that overturned through the appeals process. It's certainly not impossible. It happens. It's just hard. A jury in 2024 convicted Bongiovanni of 4 counts of obstruction of justice, conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, and making false statements to law enforcement. Now, when we heard his attorney talk in the interview, said something about making paperwork mistakes. Well, this I'll have to say, that police officers very, very often make paperwork mistakes. And my clients come to me and they say, did they do this on purpose? And it's very hard to say. But if every police officer who missed something on a report was prosecuted, you wouldn't have very many cops left on the streets. Prosecutors said Bongiovanni's little dark secret caused immeasurable damage over 11 years. They likened him to Jose Aritzari, a disgraced former DEA agent, serving a 12-year federal sentence after confessing to laundering money for Colombian drug cartels. I think that's on a whole different level from what we're looking at here with Mr. Bongiovanni. Bongiovanni upheld an oath not to the DEA, they argued, but to organized crime figures in the tight-knit Italian-American community of his North Buffalo upbringing. So what do they think he made a blood oath, omerta? I seriously doubt it in this day and age. During sentencing, Bongiovanni's family dissolved into tears on the front row of the packed courtroom in downtown Buffalo. Prosecutors said Bongiovanni's corruption involved as much inaction as calculated cover-up. They pointed to a turning point in 2008 when Bongiovanni could have acted on intelligence about traffickers he knew, whose operation would evolve into a large-scale organization with links to California, Vancouver, and New York City. He was also accused of authoring bogus DEA reports, and like I said, if every officer was prosecuted for bogus reports, 3/4 of the police force would be out of work. Stealing sensitive files, throwing off colleagues, outing confidential informants, covering for a sex trafficking strip club, and helping a high school English teacher keep his marijuana growing side hustle. That one made me giggle a little bit. I mean, I don't what's going on here. Is this a real case? Prosecutors said he brazenly urged colleagues to spend less time investigating Italians and focus instead on black and Hispanic people. Well, that's absolutely wrong if he did that. I don't know if that's illegal, but it certainly makes him look bad, and it's certainly the wrong thing to do. His conduct shook the foundation of law enforcement and this community to its core. Attorney Joseph Trippi, probably also an Italian, there was a Velardo in there, so you got a couple of Italians, told the judge that's what a betrayal is. The ex-agent's downfall came amid a sex trafficking prosecution that took sensational turns, including an implicated judge who killed himself after the FBI raided his home. I got to look at that. What the heck? All right, that's not there. Law enforcement dragging a pond in search of an overdose victim and dead rats planted outside the home of a government witness who prosecutors allege was later killed by a fatal dose of fentanyl. All right, there might be more to this than I know. I don't know all the facts. It also involved the Pharaoh's Gentlemen's Club outside Buffalo. Bongiovanni was childhood friends with the strip club's owner, Peter Garacci Jr., who authorities say has close ties to both the Buffalo Mafia and the Violent Outlaws Motorcycle Club. You really got to ask how much mafia is left. These motorcycle clubs, yeah, they do get into illegal activity for sure. I've heard of the Outlaws. A separate jury convicted Garacci of a sex trafficking conspiracy and of paying bribes to Bongiovanni. Well, if they convicted Garacci, why didn't they convict Bongiovanni of receiving the bribes? The prosecution also cast a harsh light on the DEA after a string of corruption scandals prompted at least 17 agents brought up on federal charges over the past decade. They're turning on their own. But you know what? That's what the Department of Justice needs to do. It needs to police the FBI and the DEA. Last month, prosecutors charged another former agent with conspiring to launder millions of dollars and obtain military-grade firearms and explosives for a Mexican drug cartel. Those cartels have an immense amount of money. Honestly, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. Frank Tarantino, the DEA's Northeast Associate Chief of Operations, said Bongiovanni's sentence, sends a powerful message that those who betray their badge will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. You know, reading through that, I don't know all the facts. When he beat some of the charges, the prosecution was asking for 15 years, and he got it down to 5 years. Sounds like that's probably a pretty fair and just result. It's just not every day you see a DEA agent or an FBI agent convicted and sentenced in federal court. Usually, the DEA and the ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, they're the ones doing the convicting in federal court, right? They're the ones who are putting the people in federal court behind bars. It's not usually the other way around. But it's good to know that the Department of Justice is not afraid to prosecute agents when they are corrupt. This guy, the problem is there's just so many things that they threw at him. This isn't one or two things. This is a whole bucket that they threw at this guy, and some of it stuck, and it sounds like he was likely up to some nonsense. But, you know, does the mafia really does it really still exist? I mean, I know it kind of does, but it's a shadow. It's a shadow of what it once was. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to now show you something that I'm working on here, and it's going to be a little more of the future of Joe the lawyer. So what is that, you say? Well, that is, give me 1 second here. Let me get it ready for you. It's a new series that I am going to introduce on the show. I talked about it a little bit before, but I want to give you a sneak peek just so you can see exactly what it is. It is this. It's the docket report. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to keep track of all the shows all the cases that I am following. We're going to follow these cases. We're going to make predictions about these cases, and we're going to give updates in every episode. The docket report presented by Joe the lawyer. And this piece right here, the second page, is going to show the agenda for the day. And then the third page is going to talk about the cases that we are covering. And then we will go into detail on the updates of each case. So you can see here we got the people of the state of California versus Nick Reiner, USA versus Luigi Mangione, and so on and so forth. Couple of different cases already decided. We're going to look at Tyler Robinson. We're going to look at Busfield. And we're going to fill 8 cases that I'm going to report on a regular basis. We're going to follow those trials closely. We're going to make predictions, and we're going to see if Joe's predictions come true. I want to be your source when it comes to national criminal law news and the biggest criminal trials in the country. So, look forward to this. Please continue to support me in every way you can. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. I will continue to reward everybody. And like I said, comments on the videos themselves. I'm not getting enough. I need more. I need more from my people. Help me out. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, share. Comment and share. All right, everybody. Same time sip was a little quiet today.